Hey there, everybody. This is Travis Lima here from Paid Memberships Pro. Welcome to today's webinar episode. Today, I have a very special guest with us today. And to be fair, I always say today with us, I have a very special guest. But today, in fact, is a very special day because we have Rabbi Patrick joining us on the call today. And Rabbi Patrick has probably got to be the one client, customer, or member that I distinctly remember hearing about when I first joined the Paid Memberships Pro team. Rabbi Patrick, how's things going today?
You know what? It's snowing here in Richmond, Virginia, and it's beautiful. It looks like something out of a movie.
Oh, fantastic. You said that, or rather, you've been around with Paid Memberships Pro quite some time now. I believe you were possibly an early adopter of the plugin. Is that, do I have that right? You've been sort of a long-standing customer of ours for a number of years, or?
Yeah, I was joking with Jason, I think, gosh, I forget how many weeks ago it was that it's Paid Memberships Pro and Studio Press are the two early adoptions that we did that just have like made my career possible. Getting to be, one of the earlier customers for both companies has been a real delight.
Fantastic. Awesome. So listen, I'm going to read this little write-up that I have on you just for the folks at home that don't know who you are. This is the first time we're having a rabbi on the show, at least with me. And I have to say, I visited your site, rabbipatrick.com, and that's not necessarily the site we're going to be speaking about today. But when I saw that picture of you standing there, maybe I can share my screen real quick. Let's do this. When I saw this picture of you standing there doing a wedding, sleeves rolled up, tattoos going, I thought like, man, this is the coolest rabbi I've ever seen. So let me just go ahead and change that up. So for those of you who don't know who Rabbi Patrick is, this is a bit of a write-up over here. So Rabbi Patrick is an independent, progressive rabbi, founder of Darshan Yeshiva, and a spiritual leader of Kehillah, a young experimental Jewish community in Richmond, Virginia. Rabbi Patrick provides life cycle services, including weddings, funerals, bar and bat mitzvahs, conversion to Judaism, and he has a role as a community leader to put others first and to help them get to where they want to go and where they wish to grow. I thought that was really cool when I read it earlier, so I hope you don't mind me throwing that in there. But is there anything else that you'd like to just talk about in terms of that introduction or what you've been doing, or just give a bit of a round robin of how things look on your side?
Yeah, so thank you. The big project that we've been working on lately, and which we're going to discuss because it intersects with PMPro, is our independent Jewish seminary that's called Pluralistic Rabbinical Seminary. And that has been something we've been working on for years, but it just launched last January. So January of last year. We have our first rabbinic cohort. We just launched our second rabbinic cohort as of, 27 days ago. And we're really changing the model for how rabbinic education happens. We actually wrote an article for a website called eJewish Philanthropy about 6 months before the coronavirus was found in the United States. And in that article, we wrote that some seminaries needed to move online for a host of different reasons. And maybe at some point I can remember to share that link with your community just to kind of get a sense of what we were thinking about at the time. Of course, none of us could have predicted that COVID-19 was going to happen, but my goodness, to have made the argument that it was better for Jewish education, that it was issues of class and privilege and other things that were affecting the ability for students to go to seminary, that putting it online and creating these different methodologies for online learning would be as impactful as it is now, so necessary as it has been, as we've all seen education in general move online, even for kindergartners. So that's been a really profound thing, and seeing it grow, seeing it be successful, truly has been a blessing. And because we use Paid Memberships Pro for it, you and your team have made it possible. So thank you for that. Thank you for creating a product that allows us to innovate in these remarkable ways.
Awesome. Yeah, you're totally welcome. And this isn't the only website that you've used PMPro on before. There's, from what I could tell, there was quite a number of them that you've built up some sort of membership capabilities and bringing in the rabbi aspects to different things. What other sites have you used PMPro on before?
Sure. So the original site, what kind of got this relationship going, was Darshan Yeshiva, which you mentioned in my bio. So Darshan Yeshiva initially started off as a website where we were going to train lay people, so non-rabbis, to work in Jewish communities as sort of para-rabbis, right? So you have a community where maybe there's 5 or 6 Jewish families, right? Really small. And there needs to be someone who can help with some of the spiritual leadership, but it's not economically reasonable to have a rabbi supported by 6 families or 10 families. So we had this idea of creating this sort of alternative role that could serve where rabbis maybe could not be available. What's interesting, it's a good example of how you have to innovate your way forward. We started with that, and then what we found people wanted more profoundly was the ability to convert to Judaism. So that was the user base that was coming to us, people who wanted very basic Jewish educations and people who wanted to convert. So we pivoted slightly in that way. We still have the lay leader training program, but that only makes up about 5% of what we do on that website. Really, we focus more on conversion. And where we innovated in that way is that, just for those of you who are watching who maybe aren't familiar with these ideas, so conversion to Judaism is a very formal thing. It requires a formal education in the sense that you are mentored by a rabbi, maybe you take a class or two. So it's not higher education, it's not going to college, but you maybe are taking a class, maybe you're with a group who's taking a class, things like that. Where we innovated was to say, well, number one, let's put it online. Number two, let's focus on a pluralistic, so you can see where the pluralism language first got started, a pluralistic approach to conversion. So if you're an Orthodox rabbi or a Reform rabbi, or we even have a rabbi who's a secular humanist, if you're a rabbi of any denomination, any recognized denomination, or you're someone like me who is independently ordained, as long as you are credible and you are vetted and we think you'd be a good fit, we put you on the website. And our job is to connect students and these rabbis together for purposes of individual mentorship and conversion. What we tell rabbis who are interested in working with us is, imagine a job where all you have to do is be a rabbi. There's no board of directors, there's no president you have to make happy, right? There's no fundraising. All you have to do is work with students. That's it. Let us take the administrative burden off of you so that you can focus entirely on just working with students. And in this particular way that we've done it, which is sort of gigifying the rabbinate. And that's been a remarkable thing. We're now in multiple countries. We have almost every denomination, or what we call movement of Judaism, recognized on our website, rabbi from one of those movements on our website. We usually keep an average of about 25 rabbis active on the site at a time. Rabbis come on and come off depending on their schedules. So the roster's a lot larger than that, but that's about what our active community is. We're always growing. We're always looking for more clergy who want to help. We expanded to include cantors. So these are Jewish musicians who are invested, or in some cases ordained, who work in conversion as well. So we've kind of grown who we think of as a Jewish leader that can help in that area. But it's been remarkable to see that over the years as that's grown. And we have more courses that are going to be going up on that site soon. It's truly remarkable. So we're creating an end-to-end approach to Jewish education of if Darshan Yeshiva is beginner Jewish learning, maybe even for people who aren't Jewish, and then PRS, Pluralistic Rabbinical Seminary, is what's launching future rabbis for the future of Judaism. It creates that horizontal, I suppose, system. All along the way, we have some sort of touch point for what people need.
Sure, I think that's great. I actually had so many questions coming up as you were speaking. You spoke about a lot of different points that I would have liked to cover. One of them that I thought about was, so obviously there's a very formal sort of process that you need to take in order to convert to Judaism, and now you said, like, right, let's go online, let's make this easier for people, all of that. What were some of the challenges, whether it was from a technical standpoint or, for lack of a better word, business or religious standpoint, that you had to face in order to get to where you are now?
When we first started, the landscape for online education and religion looked very different, to the point that when we started with Darshan Yeshiva for lay Jewish educators, people didn't really think much of it. That wasn't a controversial idea. It was a new idea, but it's a fairly mainstream concept. When we got into conversion, that's when people started wondering, how does this work? Well, who are they working with? Well, what does that mean? This is, one of the dangers of being the first to do something. And our model, which is that we are not funded by a movement. All of our funding comes from small donations or from students paying for classes, right? So we don't have sort of a large funder who's moving us in a particular direction. It's very much a grassroots effort. Sometimes that can be intimidating to people. And we saw that with, sort of the chatter that came about. But, you have to see through that stuff, and you have to see it as just noise. It's why you were asking me earlier before we started, what's my Twitter handle? That's why I'm not on Twitter anymore, because I don't care, right? I don't want to hear that stuff. I want to focus on the students and their needs, and innovating in the future of Judaism. So seeing through that, not letting that stuff bother you, and then just focusing on knowing that what you're doing is the right thing to do, building bridges, building relationships, and then eventually you plow through it. And then that's how you get to a point where now, 7 years later, we have rabbis who are copying our model. They're not copying it in the sense that we are post-denominational. We work with all the movements and all the rabbis within those movements. But individual rabbis are saying, well, maybe I can create my own version of this, and it's just me, right? And more power to them. Competition is good. It makes us all better. I really do believe that. So that's what I would say would be the initial issue, is that when you're innovating, particularly in the religious field, you're going to bump up against establishment. And one of the best things you can do is invite them in and say, you know what, this is transparent. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Please come play in the sandbox with us. Or, another thing that we did is we had meetings where we taught people, here's what we're using. I've literally told people, use Paid Memberships Pro, go for it. This is how you want to build it, because what we're building, what we're creating won't necessarily satisfy all needs. Right? We can't be the end all be all for everyone and everything all the time. So if there are other organizations that can take our model and use it in other ways, then gosh, go for it. And maybe we can even partner on some level. So that's the other part too, is really knowing what you're good at, and what you're here to do on this planet, and to work with people who maybe might be might be interested in what you're doing. Maybe they don't fully understand it, things like that. And now today, we receive emails from all over the world from people who, love what we're doing. PRS has had no controversy at all compared to 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when we were talking about conversion. Just kind of shows from a tech standpoint, like how tech and culture have changed over 8 years. So anyway, that's what that's been like.
Yo, fantastic. What I'm getting from that is to, and I'm trying to like also generalize it a little bit, but from what I'm getting is to have a very specific niche can help you quite a bit, to actually focus your efforts, speak to your audience, and offer value to a smaller group of people rather than sort of like the whole planet. Like you're going to focus down on these people, understand them better, and then provide as much value to them as possible. Before we get onto PRS, I wanted to ask you a question about marketing, because it sounds like you've got this really engaging community of people that are coming to your site. They're taking courses, they're converting. Both in the sense maybe to become members and then later to Judaism. And I wanted to find out, was this a case of like build it and they will come and then you just start getting these flocks of people, or was it a case that you are actively telling people your story, doing specific marketing strategies to actually advertise your site and get it known to people? Or like, what does that side of things look like for you?
So, it's the Peter Drucker quote of, business is just marketing and innovation. And, in fact, my title is Director of Strategy and Innovation. So that's basically what this is. It really is about defining a market and speaking that language of that market. So I had the pleasure once of meeting a former director of marketing at CNN. And I was very young at the time. And I said, what is marketing? Like, what is it? And he said, when Ebony magazine came out, I guess that was in the early 70s, something like that. No one predicted that magazine was going to be successful, because the idea of a magazine for African Americans, right? That wouldn't have worked. And and this is in America that is white, that's male, right, dominated business and publishing, things like that. And of course, it was incredibly successful. And he said the reason why it was successful is it spoke to people and it used the inside language of a group of people, a culture, whatever term you want to use. And he said, and that's it. That's what marketing is. It's being able to use an inside voice or an insider voice. And so when I think about marketing, that's the way I think about it. How does the group I want to serve speak? What are their values? What are they interested in? What's meaningful to them? And how do we take the resources of this world and put them together in such a way that we can provide maximum benefit for those people? I am a huge advocate for business model canvas. That has been a game changer for me. And in fact, in my role at PRS, I am not an academic educator, but I am the educator in what we call the innovation program. That's the first thing they learn. The students learn in my program that I work for how to do business model canvas. Because for a lot of people in the clergy world, and this is true, I think, of a lot of religions, you're not taught business skills. No one in seminary teaches you these things with any kind of depth. Maybe you're taught things about, nonprofit boards or congregation management, but no one teaches you what marketing is. I asked my students once, what do you think marketing is? And they said, well, it's the words that you use to sell people on things. And I said, no, that's not at all. It's about defining a market. It's about figuring out who you want to serve, or who you can best serve. So that has been incredibly helpful. I probably do the business model canvas once every 9 months. I have my own marketing trick that I use. I'm sure that it exists in some formal business, Harvard business or something like that type of name. But what I do is I take a sheet of paper and I draw an XY axis. So you're basically making 4 panels. And so in my 4 panels, I have things that only I can do that I must do. So that's one of it. Things that only I can do that I do not have to do. And then I reverse it. Things that anyone can do that must be done. And then the 4th category is things that anyone can do that I don't have to do. And what that means is the box where anyone can do it and we don't have to do it, we shouldn't do it. We need to stay as far away from that as humanly possible. The category that is something anyone can do that we must do, well, we need to hire people to do that. And then going to the personal side, things that only I can do that we don't have to do, well, then why am I bothering? Why am I wasting my personal time? Or is that something that I can train someone to do so that it's no longer on me? And then the fourth category of things that must be done that only I can do, that's where my values are. It has to align with my values. And the values, when I say mine, really it's the values of an organization. So I do this probably every, quarter. I try to look at my schedule and do that. And what that relates to marketing is that I'm a firm believer that organizations, their values are often based more on how they operate than by anything that is internal, like an internal compass. Show me how you operate and I will understand your values, versus tell me your values and how that then relates to how you operate. Because more often than not, we fall into patterns. And I see this with families that I work with. Families have systems. There's actually an idea called family systems theory. Families kind of operate a particular way. Communities operate a particular way, often not guided by values or principles, just by kind of how things shake out. So what I try to do is really look at that. How are we operating? And what does that say about what we believe and what matters to us? And then use that sort of 4-quadrant from myself and from my own time to extract more value out of my day-to-day. And then the more you operate in a way that's efficient, that is values-based, the better of a job you're going to do attracting people. So that's not, notice I haven't talked about social media. I haven't talked about AdWords. I haven't talked about conversion funnels, which for us, actually, Darshan Yeshiva is a funny thing to say, to talk about the conversion marketing funnel, because we help people convert to Judaism. So that even that lingo is a little awkward for us, because we don't think of it as a funnel, like how many people can we get to convert. That's not even in Judaism. It's not a thing. But it's all about that. And in that way, it is kind of an if you build it, they will come. But you have to know that they are there as well. So if you see the people, you know they're there, you can speak to them, speak to their inside language, use the words that they use, and then look at how you operate and make sure that how you operate is in a values-based way and that you're operating efficiently and economically. That's for me been incredibly successful. And that constant process of measuring and auditing things that aren't, how many students did we get or how many dollars did we make, but how much more efficient are we? How many new people have we brought in? Are they happy? I'm very interested in the happiness of the people we work with. At Darshan Yeshiva, we have a 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked. So if a student goes through our program and they go, you know what, this didn't work for me, hey, no problem. We feel terrible about that. It's no questions asked in the sense that we are not going to try to force you to tell us what we did wrong, or withhold, money in return. We're going to go on ahead and give you a refund. We're going to apologize like crazy and hope that you will honor us with the opportunity to get on the phone and find out what we did wrong. And fortunately, that's very rare, very, very, very rare. But that's going back to that values idea as well.
Sure. Yeah, that's really insightful. And I'm glad you touched on so much over there, because, we see a lot of people building membership sites, or I think there is not even about membership sites, but there's this kind of culture happening now online, this kind of hustle culture where it's so easy to make money. You should be making money. You should be online. You should be doing something. And I think it was great that you didn't touch on social media strategies and like do an Instagram this or that. At the core of it, it was finding your market, finding a group of people that need help, that need some sort of solution in their lives, and providing that to them as best as possible. So I think that's a seriously great takeaway for developing a membership site. One should try and figure that out beforehand, instead of like, okay, I'm going to build this membership site and then I will try and figure out how I'm going to offer value to people. So cool. Thanks for sharing. Shall we speak a little bit about PRS, what it is, how it's working? And I believe you've got a couple of things to show us on your end. So feel free to take that away when you are ready.
Sure. So Pluralistic Rabbinical Seminary, our belief, what we are focused on is training future rabbis for the future of Judaism. And so our looking out at the landscape, we're seeing that the Jewish world has changed a lot, that the needs as far as leadership have changed. Academically, what is necessary to work with people, I think, has changed. Although I'm not the academic director, I work in a very specific role within the organization on the innovation program, which I'm going to show you pieces of. We started our first cohort in January of last year with, I believe, about 7 students. We have added an additional 9 in this next cohort that just started a few weeks ago. We have rabbis and lay educators from all over the world of all different backgrounds, teaching all different types of courses. And to show you the diversity and the inclusion that we create within our educational model, one of the electives that we have is a course on Hasidic Judaism, the history. It's called Hasidic Jewish Masterclass. So it's the history, philosophy texts of Hasidic Judaism, taught by what we might think of as an ultra-Orthodox Jew, although I know him personally and he kind of, paddles his own canoe, but someone who might be visually identified within that culture. At the same time, we have a class on LGBTQ Jewish thought taught by a classical reform female rabbi. And a student could take both of those and could gain knowledge from both of those classes. So to show that diversity within our program, that we're able to attract all these different kinds of educators who are going to impart all different kinds of wisdom from different backgrounds, as opposed to this is what we want you to believe, this is what we want you to do. Instead, it's a choose your own adventure story. To sort of date myself a little bit. But that for me has been the most remarkable thing, to see the diversity of these different educators, of the students. And one of the things that makes us extremely unique, now that seminaries have moved online due to COVID-19, and obviously we'll be watching this in the future and things will look different, but we have this thing, the innovation program. So in most seminaries, when you are working your way through your program, you're basically doing a master's degree. And so that involves writing some sort of thesis paper and having an advisor or things like that. I can tell you, having been a synagogue rabbi for one community and then having founded a community as well, no one has ever asked me for what my paper, for a copy of my paper, for my, my thesis, or no one has ever asked me for any of the papers I wrote when I was, studying to become a rabbi. I took an alternative path myself, which is neither here nor there, but no one's ever asked me for that stuff, right? What they've asked me about is, how do we fundraise? How do we build programs that are meaningful to people? How do we grow this community? How do we work with other organizations in ways that are meaningful? All of these other things that have nothing to do with academics. So we created this innovation program with the idea that if we are launching a new rabbi, we want to launch them into their rabbinate. So we want to launch them into the thing they're going to do. So everyone has to build a Jewish product, a nonprofit, a business, a website, a something that is what they're going to do. I had a student recently, Amanda, say, we are not job takers, we're job makers. And that's a really key difference. We want everyone to be able to go into, whatever their heart's desire is, provided it's going to be able to be successful. So that's where we teach a lot of these business and strategy and tech oriented courses, social media. We have students who they would rather take 2 more years of ancient Hebrew than have to learn how Pinterest works, right? Like it's we all have different interests. But I'd love to show you just a little bit what that looks like.
That would be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and bring up your screen now. So, yep, there we see it. You can go ahead.
And I probably need to do the scrolling myself. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So we see what you see.
Okay, great. So this screen, this is actually an admin screen. So you're seeing the standard issue WordPress black bar at the top, which you wouldn't see if you were a student. But this portal is for students who want to start before our cohort. So we have these cohort years. They start every January. But let's say you want to start in like April, right? What you can do is you can be what we call a rolling admissions student. So you could start in April or July or whenever. You could start taking classes and then in January join up with your cohort. So it's a little bit of a way of creating like a launch pad or a runway, whatever word you want to use, for students who want to ease their way in before they get started. So the screen you're looking at just happens to be I was working in this portal, and so that happened to be the one that's up. So let's say you are, you apply for our program, you are vetted, we have a meeting to make sure that you're going to be a good fit and that we're a good fit for you. You decide you're going to enroll early before a cohort begins. This is what that looks like. Just to sort of show the PMPro side of it, if you look at these 3 links right there, that is all PMPro. You can even probably see the link, the permalinks come up. So this is all the PMPro stuff that manages the billing, invoicing, all of that good stuff. We use a subscription system where the levels are quarterly payment, yearly payment, bi-weekly, sort of things like that. So we want to give the most flexibility to students in terms of how they pay. We do not do any kind of pay-as-you-go, meaning a student can't sort of be outside of the membership level system and just kind of pay when they want to. PMPro truly is the backbone of this. So that's what that stuff is over there. These are the innovation courses. What you're not seeing is courses that our students are taking live right now, and that's because this portal would be for a student who's not in a cohort. So this is the innovation courses. There are 6 of them. You can see business model canvas. There is some lean startup in there. Judaism, a Jewish innovation, Unbound. So we worked with a really popular Jewish education and Jewish culture podcaster to build that. Clergypreneur, which is a course to help you to understand how synagogues operate and how nonprofits operate. We have an independent study, and then the final 2 courses are basically a studio time that allows people to kind of wrap up what they're working on. Then we have our electives. These are just a few. So we have electives that we create. So for example, this Jews in American Politics half-credit course. I'll just pull that up real quick so you can see that. So all of the different information about the course, the instructor, so in this case, Aaron Levi. Those of you who see this button, you probably know what that is. That's LearnDash. So you just enroll in the course and eureka, all of it comes up. Most of our courses are linear, so you have to go through each lesson sequentially. Some of them are not. It really just depends on the materials.
Patrick, are your courses sort of text-based, or have you got videos embedded on the pages if students go into a lesson, or how does that work?
Yeah, here, I'll show you real quick, like with this, for example. So, okay. So here we have, this is audio-based, so we're hosting on SoundCloud. We have all of the source sheets right here. More links to information. And then in order to pass through this unit, there's a quiz. So you would absorb all the information at your own pace. All of our electives are at your own pace. What we call the required courses, the academic courses, you do as a cohort. So you're studying either through Slack or you're doing a live, what we now call Zoom class. So in this case, you're doing it asynchronously. You start taking the course, you have quizzes like this. So that's kind of how that operates. Let me show you a couple more things real quick that might be of interest. So that happens to be a half credit course. It's something that we built. In some cases, there are things that others can do better than we can. So I'm a big advocate for clergy of all kinds becoming Prepare Enrich certified. So this is a third party website. They do these trainings to help people with evidence-based skills around sort of marriage assessment, premarital counseling, healthy families, things like that. So this is a third-party site, and you can take this course and get credit for it. And what we do is we have this facilitator verification. So you take the course, you receive your certificate, or in some cases, maybe if you're working independently with a rabbi on a course, they might write a letter, and then you upload it, and then that's what gives the system credit for the work that you did. When we receive those kinds of things, like let's say a certificate of completion, we have a human being on the other side who's vetting that to make sure it's not, that someone hasn't just uploaded a, receipt from a grocery store or something like that. Of course, all of our students are 100%. Have 100% integrity, so that's never actually been an issue. But we do, put those measures in there to make sure everything's on the up and up. So that's an example of how it's not a course we've created, but it's a course that we feel should exist within our portal. Another example is psychological first aid. This is really great for people who want to work in chaplaincy. Mandated reporter training is another example. For people who want to work in education, you need to become mandated reporter training by your state. This is a very American-centric thing. In some cases, there's colleges that do a really great job. So this spirituality, health, and healing course is a course that's can be taken. I forget what university is running that, but we found it to be a really great course. There's independent study, and then there's things like this, which are more traditional rabbinic type courses. And we can scroll through and, you can see all of that. But that's how that works. So these are all the electives. So you take 18 credits worth, I believe, and then you have to do all 6 of these. And then what you're not seeing, because we're not enrolled as a cohort student in this particular portal, is all of the other courses that you take that are the live courses. And those just pop up every quarter and then close every quarter like any other sort of academic institution.
Cool. Fantastic. Patrick, so this is great. And sometimes we get people asking us questions about how does PMPro work? How do I get LearnDash together and all of this? Technical stuff wise, did you put all of this together? Did you have a team working with it? How did that sort of look like when developing PRS?
So in terms of the technical backend, that was me. Personally. So I did that part. Obviously, it leaned heavily on, PMPro, membership in order to ask questions when something needed to be customized. And, someone was able to throw me some ideas. The blog is great for that. All the things like Kim puts out, these little nuggets of wisdom. And then with LearnDash, same idea. That was us, but it took a while to think about how does this need to look and really whiteboarding it out, and then creating a test environment where you can, essentially try to break your own website until you solve it. I'll tell you really quickly a Darshan Yeshiva story. So before we had actually set up the membership system, the PMPro system, as we wanted it with the levels and everything else, we had superficially created, more than a landing page, right? Sort of an alpha test site. And we made it public because we just wanted people to check it out and, sign up for the email list and, that early bird type of thing. Well, we had put PMPro inside it. We had put the plugin in it. We just never developed it because it was too early. We actually had someone go through the links, figure out how to sign up for membership, and signed up for membership for I think we were charging $1 because it was a test environment. So that's a really good story of build a test environment first. Don't sort of hack it together. And it was funny because I said to our board of directors, look, you know that this is going to work if people have to hack your website in order to sign up for the thing you're not selling yet. So that was a pretty cool moment. But anyway, yeah, so that was entirely us. And then from there, the actual course materials themselves, that is education or we're contracting with to do that. So that's beyond us.
Perfect. Cool. I see that we are coming up on time at the moment. I wanted to ask you, as a veteran membership site creator, owner, and developer, what sort of tidbits or nuggets of wisdom would you like to bestow upon people who are just sort of starting out or have maybe developed a site, but they aren't exactly seeing results that they would like to see as yet? Have you got any sort of like end of wisdom tidbits that you could share?
So I doubt that this should be rounded up to wisdom, but this is just an opinion I have. The trend. I mean, I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, Travis, because you know better than I do about this. The trend now of like everyone can create courses and you can become sort of this lifestyle guru and everyone will sign up to take your 5 weeks to reboot your life LearnDash course and all that creates no real value. That only creates value for the person selling it in so much as they can earn passive income. I remember at one point I was talking to my wife outside of my job, outside of my rabbinic work, about this idea of passive income. And we just kind of thought about it. We're like, yeah, I mean, it is great. I was a musician, so I love the concept of royalty payments and things like that. I do think passive income is a good sort of alternative to a 401k on some level. But if you're not creating value, people are not going to buy it. People, if they can see through it, if they can see that it's contrived, then they're not going to be your customer. They're not going to be your user, your community member, your student, whatever language is appropriate to what you're doing. But then also, if they are, then you're a con artist. And that's not right. And we need to get away from this sort of internet marketing, con artistry, take my course on Instagram and you'll be a millionaire. Here's the Lexus behind me that I rented for the day and my swimming pool and a, Marriott hotel that I'm claiming is my house. We need to get away from that stuff. I mean, we need to create real value for people and not be hucksters. And I hope that actually that's very rare. I hope that what you see on social media is, a small minority of membership sites and not a trend. That's beyond me to know. But if you're creating a membership site and people aren't, buying the thing or joining the community or whatever, it's a value issue. They just don't value it. The last thing I'd say is you'll be surprised what people do value. So, I was convinced when we started, our earlier site, Darshan Yeshiva, that this lay Jewish educator thing, this was just a great idea. We had some numbers to back it up. And that's, like I said, that's 5% of what that site does now. And you have to be comfortable, I think, as an organization to say, wow, we really didn't know what we're doing, but now we're smarter. Now we're really focused on people's needs, and this will be more successful. And you have to be willing to accommodate that and not be stubborn and say, no, like this is the content I want to make, or this is the site I want to run. And if I can't run it, then I'm just gonna, dig in my heels. You have to serve people. The founder of Bank of America, which used to be the Little Bank of Italy, said the only legitimate business to be in is the business of serving others. And that quote, and I'm probably butchering it, but that is very, very true. And that's beyond religion. That's just a values question. If we could have a more values-based society, it would be better.
Sure. Fantastic. To end off, Rabbi Patrick, do you want to drop us a couple of links of how our viewers can get in touch with you, get in touch with some of the membership sites you've built, or anything like that of that nature, please go ahead now. And folks, we're closing up now. So if there are any last minute questions that come in, I will ask Patrick, but otherwise then we'll end after that.
So definitely visit jewishpluralism.org. That's the website for PRS. You can apply at any time. You can enroll at any time. And mostly we're here to answer your questions. So it'll be our director, Rabbi Sandy Zisser, who deserves the credit as truly the founder and director of that website. I'm the president of the board, but I work at his pleasure. He's done an amazing job with the organization and has really taken us to great places. So please, connect with us, connect with Rabbi Sandy. He's a great guy. He'd love to talk to you. Connect with darshanyeshiva.org if you're interested in sort of beginner Jewish studies. Maybe you're, spiritually journeying. Maybe you fell in love with a Jewish person and you want to understand what that person's, background is like and what that's about. darshanyeshiva.org. If you have any questions there, Sarah will work with you there. She's wonderful. She actually started off as the person who managed our help desk, and now she manages the entire organization. We're big on promoting from within. So definitely reach out to her. You can reach out to me personally on Facebook. Like I said, I'm not on Twitter anymore. But please message me on Facebook, or you can reach out to me at patrick@punktorah.org. And I'm happy to talk with you there about anything that's on your mind.
Great. Okay, cool. Patrick, thank you very much for taking my call and doing this webinar. There was a ton of value to be had, especially on the the thoughts that go behind a membership and what you need to do in order to find your target audience, your market, and offering value to them. So I really appreciate that. I wasn't expecting to hear about that, and I think that is something that we need to hear more about. So thank you very much for that.
Anytime, Travis. Appreciate you.
Cool. Okay, folks, thank you very much for stopping by to watch this. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us over at paidmembershipspro.com, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, Patrick. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.